The greatest injustice is done to my people is done by the way of infection. Killing us slowly, erasing our history, done by the way of deception. God, do you know? God, do you know what you are? God, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know? Goddess, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know what you are?
Peace and Black Power family. This is your Harlem educator, author, and activist, Brother Agyei Tyehimba, representing Harlem Liberation School. Now, family, today I wanted to talk about the topic, don't just fight, build too. When we talk about fighting, in this case, I'm talking about black resistance. And it's only appropriate that we define what we mean by black resistance. So we could say that black resistance is black activity that intentionally disrupts, opposes, or exposes white supremacist oppression. Now, key words, though, are black activity. If black people are participating in it, and they're intentionally disrupting, opposing, or exposing white supremacy or white supremacist oppression, then it is black resistance. It must be intentional. Now, naturally, there is more than one form of black resistance. So we know if we took the plantation, the slave plantation, some of our enslaved ancestors committed arson. Some people broke the tools that they used. Some people intentionally slowed down their work so that they were less productive. Some people ran away and tried to get to so-called free territories up north. Some people escaped from the plantation and would locate in little islands or swamps off of the mainland of the country, and they would form their own independent societies. These were called Maroons. Some people got weapons and tried to kill every white person they saw on the plantation. But remember, all of them were forms of black resistance. Now, if you look at the screen here, you'll see contemporary acts of black resistance. You see a building that's engulfed in flames. This, of course, took place in Minnesota as a response of the black people rebelling upon hearing about what happened to George Floyd, the white cop putting his knee on his neck and killing him. Whenever you see black people looting, turning over cop cars and things of that nature, those are forms of black resistance. To the right of that picture, you see a picture. It says boycott the Oscars. This was a time a few years ago when celebrities like Jada Pinkett and brother Spike Lee were calling upon the black community to boycott the Oscars because the Oscars were not nominating black actors. Was that a form of black resistance? Yes. Why? Because the intention was to disrupt and disturb and to challenge and to protest and to expose white supremacist oppression. Brother Colin Kaepernick, who famously began taking a knee at every one of his games when they played the national anthem. This was his way of protesting and calling attention to the epidemic of white police officers and white vigilantes killing unarmed black people with impunity. He's challenging and he's protesting. He's giving voice to something. He's expressing himself in a way that is intended to draw attention, to create a discussion around police brutality and things of that nature. It was black resistance. And then, of course, to the far left, we see a picture of a sister on a bullhorn, a bunch of black people to her left. This was taken at the protests at Sesame Place amusement park in Pennsylvania. A black father took a video that went viral of this costumed Sesame Street character at Sesame Place playing with white children, but when his little black daughter reached out to play, it appeared that this character ignored her and kept walking. Black people around the country was like, no, that's disrespectful. What is that saying to our children? So this was an effective form of black resistance. I think we should spend some time talking about the benefits of black resistance. So for one thing, it helps to educate our people. If a young black teen is unfairly killed by a police officer and the community or an organization from the community decides to have a march, which will end with a rally, they're showing pictures of the black teen. They're reading off these cue cards, how old this teen was. He was on the football team. He got a scholarship to go to college in a year or so. And he was involved with community activism. It's educating everybody who's at the rally about the teen that was killed by the cop. It's educating them about the larger issue of police brutality. is educating them about exactly what happened as relates to the incident in which this black teen was killed. Black resistance also helps to mobilize people. It activates people, in other words. It engages our community, gets people talking. It causes community members to talk to each other, to share their complaints, to share their concerns, to share ideas for how to address a particular issue. When black resistance is done right, many times it actually results in some level of reforms or improvements.
That is, we want land, bread, housing, clothing, education, we want justice, we want peace.
So these are some of the benefits of black resistance, and these are some of the reasons why historically our people have engaged in it. However, there are some things we need to note. When you think of resistance, you're talking about a form of fighting back, fighting for, fighting against. And fighting is good. However, a liberation movement is going to require more than simply fighting against white people, family. We have to remember that a liberation movement also requires that we nation build, that we build. So it's not enough just to fight. Some of us can get really caught up in the fight because there's a thrill to it. You know, there's people in organizations, they only come out when there's some type of protest. They don't come out to the meetings to get that regular information, to serve on committees, to call people, to get people's email. That day-to-day organizing work, a liberation movement requires much more than the protest phase. You will note, probably in your own community, wherever you're watching this from, in your organizations, that you have people that are great fighters, but they're good at they're calling the enemy out, calling them names and humiliating them and pulling their card and exposing their dirt on this politician. And that is an important part of our organizing. However, we have to remember that when that's done, when that phase is done, that protest is over, the petition drive is done, we have to be able, as nation builders, to create things we need, to build things we need, to heal people who are damaged, traumatized, suffering from post-traumatic slavery syndrome, as Sister Joy DeGride told us in her book. We have to be able to strategize, to think tactically, to lead and govern ourselves. Half the battle is challenging your overt enemy, but the other half becomes, how do you build for yourself? How do you put the things in place that you're going to need so that you don't have to go to their hospitals, you don't have to go to their schools, you don't have to be in compliance with their laws that are unfair. And that's, I think, sometimes where we get stuck. Who's going to be the people that's going to do the building, the healing, the people that's going to say, you know, it's going to forecast in 50 years, this is what the world will look like for black people. Who's going to do that if everybody's fighting all the time? If everybody's at the protest? So this is very important. And then I think it also raises important questions. Are we simply radical integrationists who want our slave masters to treat us a little better? Is our goal just to make the plantation a little more comfortable or tolerable? Or do we seek self-determination? Right now, we're dependent on some of the same institutions that we protest. So we're upset with the police, that same police department that we protest against, we're going to call them. They're the first people we think of, 911. Now, that's natural and normal because we're a colonized entity. We're kind of a colony within the nation called the United States. So yes, we're going to be dependent on some of the same things that oppress us. So we're in a very precarious position. While we are here in this construct called the United States, we should have the best situation possible for ourselves and our children and our elders and our families and our organizations. Right now, family. But don't get stuck there, because you can be your whole life fighting the white man, family. Your whole life and your grandchildren will be fighting white folk, protesting what they did, and your whole life is revolved around them. Always think that the end game is one day to take them out the equation. This means one day to operate and exert ourselves as a nation.